Hello and welcome back to Jimbo's PC Builds. Today it's time to do another case review. So today I'm going to be looking at the Fractal Pop Mini. The Pop Mini is a new case from Fractal Design. It's a Micro ATX case, and Micro ATX case, as I've stated in other videos, for me is a form factor that doesn't get enough attention. The motherboards tend to be cheaper, the cases tend to be cheaper. From what I've seen of this Micro ATX case, it offers great airflow, a lot of features, and if you tally that with the price that you pay for it compared to, say, sort of like a full ATX case, you've still got plenty of expandability, and yet you're still shrinking the case and the footprint on your desk enough that, you know, it does make a difference. So for me, this is an example where a company have invested in a case that's going to make Micro ATX more viable. But then the question is, they've done all of that, but is the case actually any good? Is it good to build in? All that kind of good stuff. So without further ado, let's get the case on the old test bench behind me, and we'll give it the once over as we always do with cases. So as always, let's start with the main side. You can see there's a very small section at the bottom which doesn't quite line up with the power supply basement, so the glass does go beyond that. So to open the glass, it's captive thumb screws, and then the glass panel simply slides out like so. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the inside. On the inside, I can see no additional space to install drives. There's a nice cutout here for putting your cables through. There's one fan at the back, and there's two fans at the front, which seem to be installed on the outside, so in this gap here between the mesh on the front and actually the case. So there's a gap here still where it looks like you'll be able to use that for, if you're going to put a front IO, you could put the AIO here, and it looks like, you know, there's a bit of a gap there so it would fit without actually hitting this, which is good. So in the inside it looks pretty good. So now let's turn it around and we'll have a look at the back. The back, you've got your normal space for your motherboard plate. You've got 4 expansion slots for cards. Your PSU goes here, and you've got your space for the fan at the back. It'll only take 120, so no larger fan will fit there because that's taking the maximum width, so you couldn't put like a 140 there. The back itself comes up in the same way the glass panel does. We have captive thumb screws that you have to undo, and then it slides off like so. So let's see what we've got here. Okay, so we've got a tray that looks like it's detachable where you put your SSDs on. So you've got room for 2 SSDs there. You've got a drive cage where it looks like you can mount 2 drives down the bottom here. You've also, interestingly, I've seen this in other videos about this case, is you've got this little section here. Now this section here is because this panel on the front comes away very easily, because that's where you're able to install the likes of DVD drives or whatever. If you want to, and this panel, I'll get to it in a bit more detail, comes off and it's magnetic. So that's where you put a DVD drive if you want it. Cable tie points, there's quite a few, and they also include some Velcro straps for making the main channel here. It looks like, based on these ends here, it looks like the fans they've included have got RGB, always a benefit because obviously it makes them go faster. And you've got the cables coming down the back, so there's plenty. It looks like there's plenty of good tie points. Looks like there's plenty of room for the PSU at the back. Also, there's rubber mounting points here, so the PSU will rest on those. And looks like there's a good vent to go here. Looks like you could effectively put the PSU either way, because there is mesh on the basement here on both sides. As normal, I'll probably put the PSU facing downwards because there's feet underneath and there's good space for air to come out. Okay, so let's have a look at the front and the top. So as I'd already mentioned, this panel at the bottom comes here very easily because it's got 2 magnets on there, and that's where you would install, say, a DVD drive or whatever. And it just slides in. The front comes away pretty easily, like so. But the whole section comes away. Okay. Oh, and I've seen the magnets don't hold that too well. It can just pop off like that, but simply pops back on. Well, there you can see those two fans installed, and you can see this additional tray that's also included here, which fills up the other bay if you're going to use the DVD drive for the bottom. The mesh is pretty fine. There's no additional filter behind, so the only filter for dust is this mesh. Okay, so it clips back on pretty easily, but let's have a look at the AI on the top. Fall off again. So AIO on the top. You've got two USB ports. You've got a space for a USB-C, but it's not included as standard. You've got a microphone and a headphone jack. You've got the power button, and it looks like there must be a RGB controller because it looks like they've got a lighting button here, which you'll change your mode, your colour, that kind of good stuff. On top, you've got a removable filter. Looks like you've got space on the top for both doing, well, you could probably only use one 140 fan, but it looks like you could probably put two 120s at the top. Not too sure if an AIO would fit. I think if it had a slim radiator, you might have a chance, but I think it'd be very tight. I'd have to look that up, but I think you really only got the facility to mount a AIO in the front. All right, now I've gone through the case and looked at its features. Let's have a look at the parts that I'm going to put inside it. So parts wise, first thing to note is I'm putting a Ryzen 7 5800X in it. I'm going with Vulkan DDR4 memory. It's 2x8, so it's a 16 gig kit. The motherboard I'm going to be using is a MSI X570 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi. The cooler I'm going to go for is the good old reliable Cooler Master Hyper 212. I did this in a video. I compared it to the AMD stock cooler, so go up here or wherever it is on the screen. I'll leave a link there so you can check that out. I'm going for a 750 watt EVGA power supply. That's going to leave plenty of room to upgrade just in case you want to change the graphics card, because what I've gone for is an AMD Radeon RX 6600, which is probably one of the best value graphics cards you can get at the moment if you want to buy one with the impending arrival of new ones, etc. Storage wise, I'm going for a 512 NVMe drive and a 1TB SSD for like your games and stuff like that. Alright, so that's what I'm going to put in it. Without further ado, let's get on with the build. It's at this point I realised I was installing everything in the wrong motherboard. I'm not going to go through everything again, but yeah, I'm just going to install the Micro ATX. Hey ho! So on the inside, now I've put everything in, I'm pretty certain there's not going to be enough room at the top for an AIO. So if you're going to use like a 240, which will be the maximum, you have to put it in the front. There's loads of clearance for the graphics card. I think you could get a pretty long one in here. The bar for hanging cables at the back, there's no cover over it, so you've got to be considering when you're putting the cables in to not leave them all over the place at the back, because they can be seen pretty easily. Apart from that, the fans included are pretty good. There's the whine you can hear there is actually from the GPU fan. The GPU fan itself has got a bit of an audible whine going on. The individual case fans themselves are actually pretty quiet. They've got pretty decent airflow. They're on a pretty low RPM right now, but once they ramp up, they don't get too loud, and they do put through a good amount of air. So that's a really good inclusion for the case. It means I didn't have to put any additional fans in or anything else. That was really nice. So all in all, I thought the build went really well. So now I've gone through how the build went and the features that I found in the case. What are my final thoughts and conclusions on the case itself? I think it's an excellent Micro ATX case. It looks attractive. It's got all the features you need for building in. It's got great cable management. It's got the additional facility to mount a DVD if you've got those kind of requirements on, which you don't really get with any Micro ATX case. It's got lots of room for good size air coolers. It's got a lot of height. I think it's 175 millimeters is the maximum height, which is really good. You can fit a pretty large graphics card in it, and yet the case itself is pretty compact. You can tell the size difference between it and an ATX case. So if you don't want to go down to say SFX and go like looking at ITX boards and looking at that really cramped, but you haven't got room for an ATX case, or you don't want that big bulk of an ATX case, this is an excellent solution. And at the price of around $70, it's an absolute steal. The airflow is really good. I haven't really got the facility to test the temperature differences and stuff like that, but you know, by just literally ramping up the fans, and I could really tell how the airflow was going through the case, it was excellent. So you know, there's no additional filter on the front, so you know, there's no real blockage of the air. The mesh is really good. The filters, the additional filters they put on the top and on the PSU at the bottom are of good quality. So for me, this is an excellent case. And if you're looking at a Micro ATX as an option, you know, because a lot of other options are blocked off and don't have great airflow, I would have to say that this is the case for you. I would have to give this a massive thumbs up. Alright, so I hope that information is helpful, and I hope the build was helpful. If you got any questions on the build? Oh, and by the way, as you saw earlier in the video, I originally started with the wrong motherboard at the start of the video, and I swapped over halfway through because obviously I'm daft, and I didn't even realise it because, you know, I started with an ATX board and that wasn't going to fit. I didn't even notice until I put the actual CPU and cooler and everything on, so I had to do it all again. But there you go, such is life. We all make mistakes, that was one of them. So anyway, so I hope you found all this information useful. If you do like this video, go back and check some of my other case reviews, including the Lancool 205M, which is another really good Micro ATX case. Please subscribe so you're made aware of any future content. And if you did like this video, please don't forget to toss a like to it. And yeah, if you've got any feedback on the case, the build, if you've got any questions on the case, the build, or if you've got any feedback in general on the channel, please leave a comment down below. I do try my best to answer all comments. And that's it. And as always, take care.